Welcome to JHart Modelworks. Join me for this week's update as we get back to work on the Fujimi Dino 246 GTS. We're getting pretty close to finishing this one up. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since we had an update on the Dino, but the holidays are over and it's time to get back into the swing of it. So we're going to go over just a real quick on where we're at so far. We have the frunk, or the front trunk area, is mostly assembled. There's some brake and clutch reservoirs. There's the master cylinder. I honestly have no idea what this thing is here. This is the fuse box, and I thought about adding some wires in there, but I would have to use like a ridiculously small gauge, like 28 or 30 gauge. I'd have to strip it of its insulation, and then I'd have to paint the wire, and it just really seemed like more effort than it was worth, seeing as the body's going to sit over this as well, so most of that wouldn't even really be visible. And in fact, most of this is going to disappear. There is a cover that slots into place right like this, and then pretty much all of that just disappears inside the cover there. Also, what belongs in here is this piece, which is the washer fluid bag or reservoir. Needs to go in just like that. There should be a clear hose that runs out of this and runs into this. So this is a little tall. It's a little taller than what it would be technically in scale. As pictures show, that the hose would come out of here and would go right just below that edge. So, yeah, there's that. Well, also belonging in here is a spare tire. So once you start getting everything in here, it also gets really quite crowded. But that's about how that's going to sit. We have our radiator assembly with our fans built. That's already mounted into the chassis. We've also got our battery. And I've added some wires in there. That's not as pretty as it should be. There were photo etch battery terminal covers on top of there, but I've lost them. And now you can see the glue, but that's okay, because that entire assembly is going to disappear once you get this slotted into place. So you're not going to even really see it anyhow. Now we also have been doing some work on the interior. We pretty much have everything painted up. Gone ahead and glued the front wall as well as the pedals in. We'll flock this using some of this Ranger gunmetal embossing powder. I plan on doing a video with the embossing powder as well, kind of like I did with the flocking, so you'll have both side by side. It's pretty much the same procedure. The embossing powder is a little more, it's metallic looking. There's like a glittery sparkle to it. So after I did the flocking, right, the embossing powder, whatever, after I did the carpet, I hit it with some Tamiya TS80 flat clear, and that toned it down quite a bit. We have our back wall, which I did in a 3-to-1 mix of the Ferrari beige from Zero Paints and the Ferrari saddle, or not the Ferrari, just the interior saddle tan, and that gave me this color here. Now I've had 3 different bottles of this Zero Paints Ferrari beige. All 3 bottles have been different colors. So that's an issue that I have with Zero, is consistency between bottles of their paints. It's just not there, especially on these interior colors. We have our door cards done, which I did using I tried to do bare metal foil, and yeah, that did not work. So that's actually monochrome. I'm trying real hard not to touch anything so that hopefully it won't go dull. For a parking brake. We have our seats. Now I cut, well, the first one broke off, and I replaced it using some 24 gauge jewelry wire. It just has a kind of an S bend in it. And then I just decided to go ahead and cut the other 3 off and do the seats just completely in that wire. It looks a little better. Moving towards the dash and steering, we have our steering wheel. Now I painted the yellow center, and then I made the Dino logo with just black letters on clear decal film using do-it-yourself decal paper. And it actually turned out really well. It would not have turned out this well if I had tried to do the yellow as part of the decal, in my opinion. The center is, I want to say, LP48 sparkling silver with some black panel liner from Tamiya, just throwing around all the little bolts. We have our steering column. And we have our dashboard. And I put a lot of work into this dash. The Dino dashboard has a texture to it. It's almost like the Alcantara type texture we get now on modern cars. And I did this using these micro balloons, glass microspheres. And it's a pretty cool process. Unfortunately, I did not get any of it on film. But the effect is fantastic. This would also be a great effect for doing like a cloth seat. Now, I did the do-it-yourself decals for the gauges. And because I don't have the photo etch, I really wish I had the center photo etch piece. That would have made it really nice. What I did was Mr. Model makes some photo etch gauge bezels. And I just glued those in place using some watered down Elmer's white glue. And they came out pretty good. We did the buttons with our mechanical pencil and some Vallejo silver. And some Vallejo back. That came out. I was really happy with the way that came out. And you can see here we've added a 1.2 millimeter Top Studio photo etch rivet, the ignition switch. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. And the last thing we've done is we also have the rear trunk area, which we have also flocked using some of the black embossing powder, which this is not nearly as metallic-y. There's still a little bit to it, but it's not nearly as metallic as the gunmetal is. But most of these colors I've seen have been some form of metallic, like a metallic blue, a metallic red, what have you. There's always some sort of, it's almost like a glitter in it. You can see it's almost like a glitter. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get some of this assembled, and we'll be back to follow up. Alright, so it's way too cold to be spraying. We're going to spray anyhow, just so I can show you kind of what I'm doing with the dashboard. So we have a spoon here that's been sprayed with Mr. Surfacer 1500. Put some paper down so that we can recover our micro balloons. And you're going to want to mask off any areas that you don't want to get anything on. For this demonstration, I'm just masking off so that we will have the ability to see the difference between the two surfaces. So we'll be using some of these micro balloons, white glass microspheres is what they're called here. I picked these up off of Amazon. I get a lot of stuff off Amazon. And we're going to be using some Mr. Surfacer 1500 that I have pre-thinned down into one of these plastic bottles. This is very similar to flocking. So first things first, I want to put down a wet coat of my Mr. Surfacer. And before this has a chance to dry, I'm just going to dump the microballoons onto it. Just nice and thick. That's going to give you kind of this texture. If you want, you can put a second coat down of the Mr. Surfacer. Then before it dries, we just want to coat it in the microballoons. Now I'm just going to give it one more very light, dry mist coat of the Mr. Surfacer 1500. I'm not going to spray it on wet, just pretty much just enough to put color on it. Now, in theory, you should wait for things to dry between the coats. Like after my first coat of the microballoons, I should have waited for the surfacer to dry before I shook everything off and before I sprayed my second coat. And then I should wait for everything to dry before I shake that off and sprayed the color. But for just demonstration purposes, it's not that important. This is the result. Alright guys, so this is the end result. If this were an actual part, I would probably put like another coat of the black over it, and I would have let it dry completely between coats. But this will give you an idea of the process I used to do the dashboard. This effect is very useful if you're doing, not only for the Dino dashboard, but if you're doing cloth seats. This gives you that cloth look, as well as you could use it for a suede or an Alcantara look for like Alcantara dashboards or doors or something like that. Alright guys, I am back, and this is pretty much where we're stopping for the week. We have the front fully assembled, with the exception of the spare tire. That needs to sit on these two locating holes right here. There's a couple of small pins there. It's important that you get those to sit down properly because it affects the positioning for the interior. Speaking of the interior is mostly completed. And I say mostly because the seatbelts are not in yet. Now the kit comes with some seatbelt parts, and it's just the parts for the latches in the center and the shoulder belts. There's nothing for the lap belt, and this is a really, really weird setup because the way the seatbelts work on the original car is you have a lap belt that has a buckle on it. You then have a shoulder belt that has a buckle on it, and that shoulder belt connects to the lap belt buckle, and then the lap belt buckle latches into the actual latch. Now, I don't like their latch for the latch portion. It doesn't look anything like the part that's supposed to be on the car. I don't have any of my resin ones. I do have some on order. Probably be a couple of weeks before they get in. There's no latch for the seat for the lap belt, and then the latch for The shoulder belt is a square, which is not even remotely the correct shape. So I've got a couple of options. Option number one is I can use, well, both options are going to be used in the great small great details set for the buckles. And I can do a shoulder belt, I can do a lap belt, and then when my resin pieces come in, I can put the latches in. Or option two is I can use these pieces down here as well as the latch pieces and then the buckles, and I can make a 4-part harness set with the 2 shoulders attached here and the lap belt, the 2 lap belts using these up here. So I'm not entirely certain. We're going to see where we go with that. It'll probably be a bit before I make that decision though. But for now, we are going to go ahead and drop this in. All right, and you can see that we needed to get the front end first because the top of the dash overlaps it just a little bit. So barring the seat belts, that's going to be it for the interior as well. Now we don't have the spare wheel in the front because we have those stripped. The wheels themselves stripped, and we have the centers. I wanted to keep the kit silver. It was like it was like a matte chrome. I kind of liked it, but it was really thin and it rubbed off in certain places. So I decided, and with where I had to cut it off the sprues, there was no real way to fix those points on the back end for the actual wheels to go on the car. Wouldn't have looked so bad on the trunk one, but for the actual wheels, it would have left me with some gaps that I just couldn't match up. So we've got these stripped. I'm going to do these in some LP48 sparkling silver. That should give me a really similar finish. And we also have our clear parts that need to be painted. We have our rear tail lights in red, and we have our turn signals for orange and the front and rear turn signals. However, I can't paint because it's 21 flipping degrees outside. All right, we do have a small bit of update on the body. Starting from the front, we have our turn indicators in. We put those in with a bit of Bondic. We also have the windshield in, which we put in with some Bondic as well. Now the kit parts have side windows that go, let's see. Yeah, it would have been the side. They go all the way back. I didn't really care for them, so I marked them and carefully cut them off. We have our headlights in, which was kind of fun trying to get the detail in the lights to line up kind of straight. They're not perfect, but let's see if we can kind of angle this a bit. No, that didn't help at all. And yeah, there's some marking on the inside that I didn't want to be all angled and cockeyed, so it's kind of straight, which required some very careful putting in because, you know, that had to be put in with some super glue. Let's see. We have our mirrors put in. We've got the pins in there with some super glue. We have some Top Studio rivets in for the washer fluid dispensers. We also have some Top Studio 1.2 millimeter rivets in place for our door locks. I really like the look of these. I kind of wish Top Studio made these a little bit larger, like maybe a 1.6. And we have our rear trunk in place, which I have done a I've done a partial test fit. I don't want to put the body in yet, but I kind of tried to see how this is going to work out, and that body is definitely, that trunk piece is going to cause this to be a tight fit. But it's in exactly where it's supposed to be according to the instructions and where the locating pins and notches are, so we shall see when it comes that time. Looking at it, I'd say we have about a week, maybe 2 of work left. We're really just stuck waiting on some things. We're waiting for the yellow seatbelt ribbon for the seatbelts or the harnesses, depending on which way I go. On the one hand, 4-port harnesses will look kind of cool, but on the other hand, the seatbelt from the factory with the separate lap belt and the optional shoulder belt is fairly unique. So replicating that might be kind of cool as well. I don't know. What do you think? Now, like I said, I don't want to put the body on the chassis yet. With the body off, I have much better access to the interior to try and get the seat belts down in here and to get the latches in. So I want to leave the body off for right now just so I can get in there, because those are going to be a tight fit anyhow. We still need to get the rear glass in, but I want to hold off on that until I get the parcel shelf in. And the parcel shelf kind of needs to be put in place for that and for the shoulder belts. And we still need to paint the wheels and the exhaust, because we have the final pieces of the exhaust. These are ready for paint as well. We're just waiting on it to be warm enough to paint for that. And then we just have, some minor body stuff like the tail lights and Pininfarina badge and some stuff like that left to go. Oh, and we need to make exhaust tips. We need to make 4 exhaust tips from aluminum pipe. That's something we can do while we wait. So, yeah, that's about where we're at. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.